Welcome to Daily Records. I am Tommy Burton, and we are talking about the Beatles and their original British albums for the month of July. And we are going to talk about their sixth album and what a lot of people may consider the greatest album by the Beatles. Sorry there, George. I've got your face covered by the hype sticker. But this is Rubber Soul, released on December 3rd, 1965. The second full-length released by the Beatles in 1965 following Help. Go to yesterday's video for that. And this is a breakthrough album in a lot of ways. And most will say that it's rightfully so. Produced by George Martin. Most notably, this album doesn't feature the name of the band on the cover. It just says Rubber Soul up here. And it also is the same as the American counterpart. So American albums and British albums at least started to look the same, even though there were still different songs on them. Now, this album was accompanied by a double A-sided single, Day Tripper and We Can Work It Out. Like I said, the American version was a little different, but we're going to talk about the British one here. Now, they started recording this in October of 65. By this point, Beatlemania had really started to wear on the guys. They had begun to experiment with marijuana and drugs. So that influence was starting to creep in, particularly hallucinogenics. And so it started to show in the songwriting. But between October and November, they went in and recorded the tracks that would make up this album. And Lennon and McCartney kind of struggled to come up with enough songs because they knew they had to get something out by Christmas. But they were still doing concerts, television appearances, so they were still in the throes of full Beatlemania. And so they actually canceled a session while they were recording this because they didn't have anything to record. So they went back and started to record, but it's Lennon and McCartney we're talking about. So naturally, they rose to the occasion and managed to come up with a fantastic group of songs. The album kicks off with Drive My Car, one of the more driving rockers that the Beatles would ever do. McCartney's bass fully arrived. And it's primarily a McCartney song. It's followed by Norwegian Wood, This Bird Has Flown, featuring the use of George's sitar. The Indian influence is starting to creep in. So right off the bat, you could tell this is a very different Beatles album than anything that you'd heard up to this point. Another fantastic track on this album, Nowhere Man. Beautiful guitar work. And just a very introspective lyric from John, kind of in his sort of self-loathing state, along the lines of Help and I'm a Loser. He actually referred to this as his Fat Elvis period. So there you go. The Word, the word is love. So they're starting to explore some of the hippie stuff. Beautiful McCartney ballad, Michelle, simple acoustic, but wonderful ballad. And I'm not going through every track. I'm just kind of highlighting some stuff. So I am skipping over some stuff. Girl, I want to notate about the song Girl, because I was listening. If you've got Sirius XM and you've been listening, they've got the Billy Joel takeover, and he mentions the sigh in Girl famously. If you've never heard the track, I'm sorry, you should probably go hear it. But during the course of the song, Lennon takes a deep sort of sigh, and it's heard on the record, and it's part of the song. Now, Billy Joel said that it sounded like a marijuana toke, but I've never made that connection. To me, it's more like an anxious sound, and it has nothing to do with drugs. But I feel like a lot of people associate the drugs or drug use with the Beatles. That really they're finding stuff. But I do want to talk about the song In My Life, another Lennon song on this album. That's just a beautiful song. Now, I've got a personal issue with it. I feel like the first, it's a great song. Don't get me wrong. I love the song, but I feel like the first verse of that song is just some of the most poetic Lennon ever was. And then like by the end of the song, he kind of turns this sort of very beautiful introspection into more or less just a love song. So I feel like, you know, he kind of gave up on it. But it's a great song. It's a beautiful melody and just a fantastic song. But Rubber Soul, one of the greatest albums by one of the greatest bands. If you've never heard this album, and I can't understand why you wouldn't have, stop watching this and go out and get yourself a copy. If you're a fan of music, I think there's something for you here. Rubber Soul, the sixth album by the Beatles, as we go through July. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's TommyBurton75. Also, check out my other channel, my regular channel. And in the meantime, I will see you all again tomorrow with another Daily Record.